Sometimes it's more beautiful because they were broken. Broken, and the challenges don't need to hide, we have to celebrate. It's like cracks in ceramics. We have to celebrate as important part of our life and identity and what makes who we are.
People just mentioned that imperfection is just part of the past. We have to accept that. And furthermore, we have even to just show that. Okay, hello everyone. My name is Lei. I'm a specialist of East Asia art at the Center Art Gallery. I'm also curating our upcoming exhibition in November, Reincarnation, which is an exhibition featuring East Asia tea culture. And today we have a very special customer at our gallery, Fukumaru Naoko, who is a Kintsugi specialist, conservator, and also a Kintsugi artist. Naoko has been working as a professional conservator for institutions including the Metropolitan Museum of Arts in New York, the Detroit Institute of Arts Museum, and other institutions in the USA, Europe, Egypt, and Japan. And meanwhile, as a Kintsugi artist, Naoko plays with different themes and concepts with the techniques of traditional Japanese art of golden joinery, Kintsugi. And today, Naoko is going to introduce us more about the classical Japanese art form, Kintsugi, and more importantly, her own artistic creation through it. Okay, so Naoko, let's begin with, I just did a very brief self-introduction for you just now.
Yes.
Would you like to tell us more about yourself, your background, the things that you're passionate about?
Yes. I was born into a third generation antique auction house family in Kyoto, Japan. And the business was started by my great-grandfather collecting unwanted broken items with a wheelbarrow. Growing up surrounded by fine art and antiques, I started experimenting with broken items since I was young.
Oh, great. Yes. I like it.
My first project was when I was 8 years old. My mother asked me to untangle her gold necklace. And I could spend hours and hours finding a way to untangle the necklace, and I finally managed. And my mother was very happy, and I could see little tears coming from my mom. And since then, my family brought me all kind of broken things.
Broken pieces.
Yes, and I always found a solution to give second life.
Oh.
And that was a very strong experience that I could make people's pleasure with my strong effort. And that was my dream, to follow my great-grandfather's footsteps, and I made into career. And as you explained, I worked in the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, Detroit Institute of Art, and other institutions in Egypt, Japan, Italy, Spain, and yes, all over the world for past 20 years.
Okay.
Yes, and I just opened my studio and my own business in Vancouver.
Wow, interesting. Very fascinating life story. That's how I guess that from when you were 8 years old, you were fixing the thing passed by your mother. That's how you fell in love with Kintsugi.
Yes.
So do you like to tell us and tell the viewers more things about Kintsugi, this art form, its history, origin, and like more specifically how you fall in love with it and how you choose it as your career?
Yes. Kintsugi is a 500 years old traditional Japanese way to restore broken ceramics with gold. I knew Kintsugi for a long time, but I was not broken enough to understand the beauty and philosophy behind Kintsugi. Especially, I studied and practiced Western and European restoration techniques to restore ceramics, which is to hide breaks and restoration. And this is completely opposite approach of Kintsugi. When I met Kintsugi, I was very broken and bottom of my life because my 21 years personal relationship just ended. So Kintsugi taught me how to accept impermanence and imperfect of life and how to cope with grief. I'm restoring the broken part of myself during the process of Kintsugi. Kintsugi is not only a form of beautiful art, it's teaching us how to be ourselves.
Yeah.
And this philosophy is in traditional Japanese aesthetic called wabi-sabi, finding a beauty in things that are impermanent, imperfect, and incomplete.
Okay, so following up,
Yes.
Kintsugi is known as an art form of repairing, as you just introduced to us. Could you tell us more specifically about the process of how you're giving a second life of things? The process when you're playing with the techniques of Kintsugi, when you're trying to not only repairing things, but also in a very different wabi-sabi way that is not trying to hiding the imperfection, otherwise showing them to the universe.
Yes. Urushi is the main ingredients of Kintsugi. We use urushi for consolidating fragile ceramics, assembling a fragment together, making missing parts, filling losses, coating, and also use as adhesive for gold powder. The benefit of Kintsugi is using natural material and 100% food safe. So we can use Kintsugi again as a functional ceramics.
Yeah.
This is not usually the case when using synthetic materials or Western European restoration techniques. They are not able to use and it's not food safe.
Yeah.
And the difficulties of Kintsugi is making a new scenery and embracing the breaks.
Yeah.
That's the challenging part. And it's very important for me to communicate with broken ceramics and finding out how they want to be restored. And for me, I put a lot of love and care during my process. And Kintsugi cannot be real Kintsugi without care and love.
Yeah, well, I like the word you use it. You actually communicate with the porcelains rather than just repairing them.
Yes.
So you're actually treating them as like
My child.
Your child, your friends, isn't it?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So you just mentioned about the challenges that Kintsugi is being faced up with nowadays. Also, well, as we both know, Kintsugi is over 500 years old. Japanese way of repairing things. It's an old techniques, but also a lot of people recognize it as actually an art form. There's in pre-modern China, in modern China, in Japan, and Western world. So, could you please tell us that why is this art form still very important nowadays? And do you think Kintsugi can also be recognized as a contemporary art form?
I respect traditional materials and techniques, but I also challenge to find a way to make beauty by pushing traditional beyond the tradition. For example, I use non-traditional material such as barnacles, plants, shells, stone, sand, and anything I find in nature.
Yeah.
Like here I have, for example, this is a traditional way of restoring with Kintsugi. It's a smooth gold line applied. And yes, this is also a piece traditional way. And here is a little bit different. Instead of going a solid gold line, I made only outline and then middle part has urushi. Because this is very rare 18th century Japanese karatsu, has beautiful tenmoku grays and floating and has movement. So I wanted to follow this movement, and then left inside is black, so that we can see the floating. I call it floating river style.
Oh,
Yes.
it's beautiful.
And yeah, this one example is the break line was only in the middle, and then some 1 and 2 here. I wanted to make something alive, my kintsugi, so I made like a tree. So there is a tree, 1 tree here, second tree here, and then actually this is a tea bowl we use for Chanoyu tea ceremony. And when we are using this tea bowl, there is matcha green tea here, and we can see the bottom. But when you finish the tea, you realize that these 2 trees are connecting in the middle, and so there is a story, and we can discover during the tea ceremony. So I will use this piece for the event of the exhibition at this gallery. Yes, so you can see
It's very beautiful.
Yes, and this is, for example, I use the sand mixed with urushi lacquer, and then I put gold leaf on top, because this original ceramic has very rough style, and it's not porcelain, not like smooth. So I wanted to communicate with the roughness of the original piece. And this is funny. This one has barnacles.
Oh,
This,
signatures.
yes, this is made by Heinz Laffin. He is early BC studio potter, very important person in Honbi. Honbi has beautiful nature and has amazing sea. So I collected barnacles and communicated with. He got a lot of influence from the sea when he was making pottery. So I applied barnacles and then worked out very beautifully. Yeah, this one is using blackberry thorn. So normally when there is a break is the weakest part. But applying a blackberry thorn, became the strongest part, the opposite of how it was. So I made for as an art piece. And this is also made by Heinz Laffin, but assembled with 3 different kind of pottery, and the 5 fragments together with kintsugi. So it's became kind of interesting alive form.
Wow, very interesting. So your answer is yes, kintsugi can be recognized as a contemporary art form.
Yes.
And that is also what you are doing right now, isn't it?
Yes.
Could you please tell us a little bit more specifically about your artistic expression through the form of kintsugi, like when you're giving a second life to the porcelains? What are you hoping to achieve
Yes.
as an artist?
Yes. Through my kintsugi artwork, we can see something once broken, transformed into something beautiful. Sometimes it's more beautiful because they were broken. This transformative spirit of kintsugi has emotional impact on people, which echoes within and can help us recognize, process, and release our own internal pressure, and which makes us as identity. Like a broken, and the challenges don't need to hide, we have to celebrate. It's like cracks in ceramics. We have to celebrate as important part of our life and identity, and what makes who we really are.
Yeah, I like you just mentioned that imperfection are just a part of us, and like we have to accept that. And furthermore, we have even to just show them instead of just hiding them inside of ourselves.
Yes.
Okay, so the upcoming exhibition at our gallery, like you just mentioned, it's actually an exhibition featuring antique Japanese tea kettle and silver candles. And we're also going to have bonsai and antique furniture being displayed. So it's an exhibition featuring antiques. And in choosing your works being displayed among all the other antiques, what do you want to convey to the viewers?
The kintsugi was born because of Chanoyu. And Chanoyu is a Japanese traditional tea ceremony.
Yeah.
And Chanoyu was born because the Buddhist Japanese monk brought back tea from China in 9th century. And we created our own style and spirit of Chanoyu from influence of Chinese tea ceremony. I think it will be very interesting exhibition that these two important cultures get together.
Yeah.
And the audience can learn and experience these cultures from different perspectives. And I'd like to convey that not only beautiful appearance of Kintsugi, also philosophy of Kintsugi. Even though we have difficulties in our life, we should never give up on life.
Yes.
We can be born because we were broken. So I'd like to convey that it is my aim with Kintsugi to open people and help them to discover for themselves how to be beautifully broken. So during this exhibition, I'd like to show my reincarnation magic.
Wow. Super choosing of words. Reincarnation magic. I like it. We're hoping to achieve the goal of doing a very beautiful visual display of the tea culture, which I think is a very perfect example of Sino-Japanese artistic exchange, both in pre-modern, in modern, and also in contemporary events. We have a lot of communication between people, just because tea is always a perfect medium to let people sit together and have a great communication. Hopefully that's going to happen and everybody is going to enjoy this visual display. So a final question to you is 2020. We both know that it's a very special year to a lot of people. Like, as an art gallery, we also experienced a lot of what we didn't expect before. So it's 2020 a very special year to you and to your artistic career?
Yes, 2020 is a very important year for me because I opened my own restoration business and Kintsugi showroom in Vancouver. I invited many curators, artists, collectors, and art dealers to my studio. And we had very interesting discussions and brought me great opportunities. It's not possible to show a beauty of Kintsugi just looking at photos.
Yes,
and normally my guests are very surprised because they expected to see traditional Kintsugi applied on Asian ceramics, which is smooth gold line. But I respect traditional materials and techniques, but I also use non-traditional materials and style and techniques and also applying Kintsugis to ceramics from different cultures to innovate, to expand, and beyond above tradition.
Oh, that's very interesting. Yeah, same story to me. When I first visited your studio, your Kintsugi work is so different than most of the Kintsugi works I already know, since I also had a very long experience in Japan and had already visited a lot of museums and galleries to see the traditional Kintsugi, and I was really being inspired by your kind of Kintsugi, and also you're not only working on Japanese porcelains and ceramics, but also the porcelains, the wares, the art pieces from other culture, other places as well, which is very fascinating and inspiring. Okay, Naoko, thank you so much for your great in-detailed explanation and introduction to us, and we all look forward to seeing more of your works being displayed in the upcoming exhibition.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you very much.